This is the Baseball Tonight podcast for Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. And today will be better than yesterday. I'm Buster Olney, working from my hotel room down in Fort Myers, Florida. On Wednesday, we have the next exhibition broadcast, Red Sox and Yankees. Taylor Schwenk is working from the Schwenk Studios. And joining me now for the top of the first, Karl, Ravech, Eduardo, Perez, who, of course, we did the game together on Monday. We've got another game tomorrow, guys. Good to see you.
It's Buster. It is great to be seen, and it's great to be doing baseball again. I mean, that was a pervasive feeling when you had kind of a B-C lineup from both the Braves and Tigers. It's baseball. A lot of people are dealing with winter. A lot of people are just looking for something to put a smile on their face. I think just seeing baseball on a TV is a way to do that. So it was great.
It's new beginnings, Buster. New beginnings, and that's what I love about it. So we got one underway, and now we're going to go for number 2 tomorrow.
And you guys are together today, I see. Huh? In Karl's house?
I lost a lot of golf balls today, Buster. I lost a lot of golf balls today. All the progress that I thought that I made in the offseason, it all came right back.
How many golf balls, Karl?
I would say let's see. If I peg the over under at 10, it was like right close to that. I'm going to go over, maybe 11, maybe 9. I don't know. Am I close?
Over. Pumping up.
Over.
Oh my goodness. Well,
he went from playing in a big, wide open course to one that was like this. So it wasn't the most enjoyable.
Today felt like the ABS. It felt like we had the ABS system on today. Everything was tight. Corners were tight. They were calling everything, Buster.
It was a work in progress for you, but you had a better day than Jurickson Profar. Jeff Passan was the first to report that he has been suspended for a second time under baseball's PD program. That means 162 games. Now, the word is the union, the Player Association, could challenge this, but if you are on a second offense, you are held out, even as you go through that process. So Jurickson Profar looks like we'll miss the entire 2026 season. And Eduardo, I'll start with you. I talked to someone about it tonight, and he said, how dumb can you be? Like, he was just astonished that Jurickson Profar had lost half of last season, and then to get nailed again under the PED policy to, essentially lose $15 million in salary this year after making only $6 million of his earnings last year. It just makes you shake your head. You don't usually see repeat offenders.
It's sad. It really is, Buster. And then you start wondering if, look, there's a substance abuse problem to this as well. It's obviously the PEDs are part of it, but now you're wondering if it's more than that. When you have an individual that is willing to sacrifice that amount of money, you know that there's definitely something wrong. There has to be a major red flag there. It's not just about the suspension. Now I'm concerned about the person. When one decides to do that, you start now being concerned about that individual more than that. I'm looking at forget about baseball. This is a definite substance abuse problem that Jurickson Profar is going through. We were with Walt Weiss yesterday in Lakeland, and Walt Weiss told me, he goes, man, Jurickson Profar looks great. Now we know why he looked great, right? But this sets back the Atlanta Braves in a major way. In spring training, they could have done other things if Jurickson Profar they would have known earlier. This now puts that organization again in issues and problems, just like they did last year. So we'll see how this ends up for the Atlanta Braves and how Alex Anthopoulos decides to pivot from this.
Karl?
Yeah, I mean, it makes the Mike Yastrzemski move, look sort of prescient almost. Yeah, I mean, from a baseball perspective, being with the Braves, they have a lot of talent, but we sort of talked yesterday about it. There's a bit of a house of cards approach to the season, because it seems like 80% of the guys are coming off some type of injury, or in Profar's case, a suspension. So there's a lot of, very thin ice that you hope stabilizes, but this is like a disastrous start for a team that needs so many things to do a 180. And this one is the same as it was last year, but worse. Yeah, it's very disheartening. I mean, they invested a ton of money in him, and it is really disheartening. It's discouraging. If Eduardo is barking up the correct tree about substance abuse issues, you certainly hope that's not the case. And if it is, you hope that he's able to get some help. But just from a strictly baseball perspective, this is not, at all the way a team who's trying to rewrite a script starts the season, because it's the same script that we heard already last year.
Yeah. Say Murphy's lost spring training so far for the Atlanta Braves. Of course, they lost Spencer Schwellenbach, and he's out till midseason because of his elbow issue. And Hurston Waldrep, he's out. You had Sean Murphy, their catcher. He's going to be out until sometime in mid to late May. Hassan Kim, who they thought was going to be the shortstop, reportedly fell on the ice during the offseason. He's going to be out till the middle of May. So I want to pose this question to each of you. If you were the Braves, what would you do at this moment? Because when you look at available free agents, Tommy Pham is available, Andrew McCutchen's available, but certainly not as many guys or not as many options as you might have had a month ago. You could call the Houston Astros and overpay for someone like Isaac Paredes, try to get him. He's not a perfect fit because he's an infielder. They don't have a spot there. Maybe you could use the money, and it's not only the $15 million in salary you're saving, but also they were going to be charged 20% for going over the next luxury tax threshold. So they have about $18 million that they're not going to be devoted to Jurickson Profar. Eduardo, if you're the Braves, what are you doing? Are you just going to wait till the end of spring and see if somebody becomes available?
I think right now it's opportunity for the guys that are there. It's opportunity. If I know that Mike Yastrzemski's there. Would I go out and try to get a right-handed bat? You mentioned Pham, you mentioned McCutchen. Those are two high-character guys that understand what clubhouse culture is. And I think you need to have that clubhouse culture and high leverage. If Andrew McCutchen is willing to go out and play another year in a platoon-type situation, I think that would be beneficial for him as well. So there is an opportunity there, but I'm looking within first. And let me add one more thing to this, and I've always said it for years, and I'll continue to say it. If you test positive, I really do believe that if a player tests positive for the rest of their career, their contract should be a non-guaranteed deal. And I know the union backs up the players in many ways, but at the same time, I think players that do try to take advantage and are caught aren't following those rules. So why should we continue to protect them? I know it's an entire season, but I think this is where the Atlanta Braves should be able to cut the cord with a player that they signed to a multi-year deal, because it was under false pretenses right now that we see this deal being made by Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, Kevin Pillar tweeted about that. Basically, why does this player how can he be allowed to cheat his brethren, essentially? I'm paraphrasing what he sent out on Twitter. Karl, if you're the Braves, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think to Eduardo's point, just to follow up on that, the idea that the union is protecting the one player is hurting everyone else in the Braves organization. So who are you protecting? The one, or are you trying to protect the rest of the organization and the rest of the current team? I think I wait until early. I wait to see how these players play. I wait to see if, in fact, some of these guys coming off injury are going to be able to perform. And then I maybe get on the phone with a team like the Red Sox, who have many outfielders. I mean, if that's what you're going to replace, then you can call a team that has a lot of outfielders. It's quite clear you're in the desperation mode. Makes it a lot harder for you to kind of get even value. But I think there are teams that have a surplus of outfielders, if that's the direction they want to go in. But before I'm trading away future pieces, I got to see how the guys in the present who are coming off down years or injured years are going to perform this season before I go out and do it. And look, they're also in arguably as top-heavy a division as there is, when you talk about the Mets and the Phillies. So the idea that they got off to an 0-7 start and never were able to dig out of it, there is a whole bunch of deja vu all over again. And I'm not thinking I'm going out to try to put a Band-Aid on a self-inflicted wound right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the Red Sox. Masa Yoshida would be someone who theoretically could be available. I mean, the Red Sox would probably love to unload the rest of that contract. The Braves' blueprint, though, I think is for them when Sean Murphy comes back would be for Murphy to mostly catch and for Drake Baldwin to be a DH most of the time.
Right.
So I don't know if Yoshida would fit the timetable. I don't know if he would fit the budget. Maybe the Red Sox would just eat as much money as possible just to move him along. All right, item number 2 I wanted to ask you guys about today. Roki Sasaki pulled off the mound in the first inning of the Dodgers versus the Guardians game after giving up grand slam, not recording it out, not recording it a single out, and he only logged 8 strikes and walked 3 batters. Okay, Eduardo, you've been around a lot of spring trainings. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned would you be?
I put it at a 7.5.
Yeah.
Reason being, it's Arizona. And if this was Florida, I'd probably jack it up to a 9. I'm going to say Arizona's a little different. Players sometimes don't have a feel for it. They're working on certain pitches. This is his second outing where already he has struggled on the mound. It's not just a one-off. And because of that, I'd be a little bit concerned with Roki Sasaki. But we have to understand that spring training is completely different than the regular season. I've seen pitchers get absolutely lit during spring training. And once the lights turn on, now it's time to get outs instead of working on certain pitches. It's not a good thing, obviously, for the ego and for the mind that he is getting hit this hard. But we don't know exactly when he goes out there if he's working on certain things. The Dodgers, who are very advanced when it comes to understanding of a pitcher's tipping or something like that, they have to look at that as well. But right now, it's about controlling the zone, and it looks like he's not doing that as well, only with those 8 strikes.
I agree with you. I got it at a 7 out of 10. I'm concerned, Karl, because of how last season began for him, where he was struggling
Yeah.
with his command. And so I have these issues right away. That's why I've got heightened concern about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen this a lot in spring training where a pitcher has no control over it or the velocity is down, and invariably they shut the guy down. There's some issue with the shoulder, with an elbow. That's all speculation, but I would probably go a little bit higher on Sasaki, where if you cannot throw strikes or your velocity is down, I don't think we're just working on something. I think the thing we need to work on is throwing strikes. And if we can't do that, there may be some underlying reason that he can't do that. So I'd probably go a little bit higher than that because I know that, look, we just left Tigers camp and we spoke to Tarek Skubal. He's going to make one start in the WBC. The level of concern early in the season to protect pitchers is massive. So I think in Sasaki's case, they're not yet working on anything with that guy. It's got to be about his command and control before it is about developing a new pitch or perfecting another one. And I'd be worried that he hasn't been able to do that yet. I'd be worried.
All right, third item. We had the Braves and Tigers game on Monday. As I mentioned, we got the Red Sox and Yankees on Wednesday. I'm going to ask each one of you for something that you're going to take away from these 2 games. Having researched the teams, talked to different people. For me, it's Kevin McGonigal with the Tigers. Like, to hear the stories about him and the expectation that he's going to have impact right away, and one person comparing him to Dustin Pedroia. That is definitely I think the biggest thing that I took away from being around the Tigers in recent days. Karl, what about you?
Yeah, I think he ends up starting. And I assume he's going to start at
Really?
shortstop. I think he makes the team.
Okay.
AJ's almost. It sounded like looking for a reason not to do it, as opposed to he keeps giving me reasons and this organization reasons to do it. I wouldn't say that it's written in stone, but I do think it's trending that way. I think what I took away from the Tigers are 2 things. A, the starting rotation is fantastic. And B, it's really the overall health of that team as well. AJ's convinced they have a really good offense. And the idea that Matt Vierling is back and is a right-handed bat, I think maybe it was Eddie, one of us asked, how important is it? And he's like that. Are you kidding me? That may be the most important. He's a big X factor on that team. And they have a lot of, depth on that team. This is an ideal situation for AJ Hinch in the versatility that team has. and I'll just move ahead to our game with the Red Sox and Yankees. The health of Cole is to me the biggest wild card in all of it, and I think he's going to be really healthy and have a great year. But I think with the Red Sox, the moves that they made and Breslow made put them on the same level with Toronto and New York. I don't think they're behind them at all. I think that this is a team for Alex Cora that's very much like AJ Hinch. There's a lot of movable parts. They're athletic. They may lack some power, but we don't know what Roman Anthony is going to be capable of. We don't know what Tristan Casas, if he plays and is able to hit balls over the wall, what they're capable of. We know that Duran's off to a good start. We know they're going to put the ball in play. We know they're going to be athletic, and their starting staff is probably the best in the league.
Eduardo?
Buster, when it comes to the Detroit Tigers, the only thing that I can recall from our conversations with AJ was at the end of the season when their pitching just ran a little short and they had to address it. And they waited, and they waited, and they were able to get a veteran in Justin Verlander, and most importantly, Framber Valdez, especially after losing Olson. They're able to get two arms that know how to pitch into October. Justin Verlander was really good in the second half of the season with San Francisco, an ERA under a 4. And then most importantly, Framber Valdez. And already AJ Hinch is looking at what's the best defense in the infield can I have with a pitcher like Framber Valdez, a pitcher that he also managed with the Houston Astros, both guys. And they addressed a huge asset right there with those starting pitchers that they needed. And because of it, I get the McGonagalls. I get the young players. I understand Carpenter from the left side. I understand Javi Baez. He can play center field. He can play all over the place, the versatility they have. But it comes down to pitching and how are they going to be able to help their $32 million arbitration winner in Tarek Skubal get over the hump. And I think it's with Framber and with Verlander.
Two more
one
quick
other thing, Buster, too. Just one other quick thing. A lot of times we and witness managers getting fired, managers getting crushed, managers being criticized for decisions they make, etc. I think in this case, when you talk about Framber and you talk about Verlander and rounding out the rotation, at some point you have to point to the guy that's the manager of the team and talk about the relationships that he has had with them in the past. They have a good enough team to win it. He is a key part of why I think they both wanted to go there. Verlander could, like Scherzer, gone somewhere else where he thought there was a chance to win a championship, could have gone back to the Orioles and been closer to, where he went to school, et cetera. But at some point, you have to recognize that there's a Hinch factor to this as well. Doesn't mean it works out, but I think that's one of the reasons both those guys ended up there.
All right, my first quick one for you, see if you co-sign. One, I think the Tigers are going to win the Central handily. Karl, you co-signing?
Yeah, I mean, you can put me. You can. Can I docu-sign it or just like co-sign
it? Okay, Eduardo.
I'm in.
I'll just be a witness.
Oh, you're not. Okay. Are you serious? Are you thinking that they're going to be challenged? I mean, we always underrate Cleveland.
We always underrate Cleveland, and we can't go to sleep with the Kansas City Royals. I think those are two teams that we cannot go to sleep with. I think we're going to see a vast improvement in young players like Jack Caglione. I think the experience that he's going to have in Team Italy here in the World Baseball Classic is going to carry through, and it's going to give him confidence that he knows he belongs. I think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be that star. And let's not forget, they brought the fences in the gaps in Kauffman Stadium. And I think that's going to play big for the offense there, something that they lacked in a major way.
Who wins the WBC, Karl, and who do they beat?
Team USA wins, and they beat Japan. Those are the two, I think, collectively the two best teams. And I love the Dominican Republic team. I just think the way that baseball is in 2025 and 2026, that the Japanese players, and it starts, and Eddie knows this, and you know this, at a very young age, there's an enormous amount of pride in owning the game of baseball. But the collection of talent that Mark DeRosa and the WBC have this year is beyond all-star game. I think there's a carryover dovetail effect from the Olympics I find it hard to believe that the United States doesn't end up winning the WBC. And maybe it's Ohtani who gets struck out for the final out against, a closer for Team USA.
Eduardo?
Yeah, Clayton Kershaw, maybe. But I'll tell you this. Um, I think the Dominican Republic's going to go undefeated. I think they're too good.
Wow.
They are too good. They are deep. They have the arms. They have the offense. They were embarrassed in the last World Baseball Classic. They did not get to the semifinals. And to me, it is the Dominican Republic that will just take care of every team, including Team Japan and including the USA.
All right. Austin Wells the other day when I was talking to him about he's playing on the DR team, he was just going on and on about how deep that lineup is. So this is going to be fun. All right, guys, thanks for doing this. I'll see you tomorrow at the ballpark.
All right, Buster.
You got it.
Hembo is Paul Mbakidis, a researcher at ESPN, of course, a content producer on the show Get Up. Hembo, how you doing this week?
Buster, I'm doing well. I'm going to spring a question on you that I'm going to ambush. You don't know I'm about to ask this, but I was asked this question on, it was a Boston radio station a few days ago, and I thought to myself,
Okay.
you'd be a better person to ask this to than I'd be, certainly. They asked me, when was the last time we entered a season with this much excitement? Like, when was the last time I was this excited for a baseball season? And I thought to myself, that's a good question, because my sense right now between the Dodgers' potential three-peat, the ABS, obviously the looming lockout, the WBC, I think baseball's got a lot of juice right now. So my top-of-head answer to that question was, I think this is as excited as I've been since entering 2004, coming off that incredible 03 postseason, and then, of course, that offseason that saw A-Rod be traded to the Red Sox instead, traded to the Yankees and all that hullabaloo. So that was my top-of-head answer, but you've been covering the sport, obviously, a lot longer than I have. What is your sense of the kind of juice, for lack of a better term, that baseball is entering this season with relative to seasons past?
So my answer is definitely going to disappoint you. I feel this way every year. Like, I love going into each season. I feel like especially when we're at the end of February, beginning of March, I just love the fact that, that you have players moving around and there's a star with a new team, and how are they going to hit the lineup? Like yesterday, I had a conversation. Who's a Mets fan, actually, who works as an usher over at Lakeland for the Detroit Tigers. And he was like, what would you do? Where are you going to hit Bichette? And we know Soto likes to hit third, and there's thought that, Bichette's going to hit in front of Soto. What would you do? I love those conversations. You know this because you and I will go back and forth on it. So I mean, I feel regenerated every year when we get to this time of the season. I think that sort of mirrors the players. The players are all fired up. And of course, by the end of September, when you walk into a clubhouse, it's a very different atmosphere for a lot of teams. But this time of year, people are so excited. So sorry not to give you a specific year. I think if I were to pick out one year, it would be 1995. Right after the players' strike ended, coming back to work, being excited that I got to that year cover Cal Ripken's record-breaking season, surpassing Lou Gehrig's record. That's probably more of what you're looking for.
Perhaps, but here's hoping that we don't wind up having to miss an entire season, so you have to answer a question like that again a year or two from now. Here's hoping that cooler heads can prevail, and that next year this time we're talking about ball the way that we are today.
Yeah, and I think we'll be talking at the end of the season about how the ABS system came in more smoothly than people expected. Like the pitch clock was something that is roundly accepted by the players and enjoyed by the fans. I listened to some catchers in the Tigers clubhouse yesterday. They were talking about how the strike zone is definitely smaller than it was before. Once you have the ABS challenge, the umpires are more precise in what they're doing. With that in mind, what is a skill that you feel like the pitchers need to have with the ABS system?
In zone whiff, Buster, more specifically, or in layman's terms, a pitcher's ability to induce swing and miss on pitches thrown inside the strike zone, I view as the foremost skill that any pitcher that's going to thrive in an ABS world is going to have to be able to obtain. And I think the data show that, at least over the course of time, that in-zone whiff and chase have been two things, obviously, that pitchers have chased, and they have been fairly similar in terms of predicting pitcher performance. And so what I'm theorizing, Buster, is that the dare you to hit it pitchers, the stuffy pitchers, are going to continue to ascend, while the pitchers who major in guile for lack of a better term, are probably going to see a bit of a diminishment in this era. And I could be totally mistaken, but just thinking about this holistically, if the borders of the strike zone are now obviously a lot more rigid, then are you as a hitter going to be as inclined to expand if that black is hard and fast, right? And so some of the pitchers I wrote down who were especially good at inducing in zone whiff and aren't especially good at inducing chase include Joe Ryan, Freddie Peralta, Carlos Rodon, Robbie Ray, and I wrote down some pitchers who are the exact opposite, guys who induce a lot of chase, but aren't that effective living within the zone, those being Sonny Gray, Merrill Kelly, Edward Cabrera, and Ranger Suarez. And in just that small subset of pitchers, Buster, what it really comes down to for me is if you have an overpowering fastball and you're daring hitters to swing and miss inside the strike zone, I do believe that is going to provide pitchers a leg up. And so if you're one that romanticizes about the nibblers, the 7, 8, 9 inning starter who's going to throw 80 or 85% to get yourself there, we're never going back to that because my theory, at least in a nutshell, even though I do fully endorse the ABS, is that stuffy pitchers and guys that can blow cheese are going to be the ones that wind up winning the day because in-zone whiff has become the foremost virtue that any pitcher needs to chase.
So what's interesting about the list of 4 pitchers that you could see maybe suffering from the fact that they don't have stuffiness, to use your words, in the zone. 2 of the 4 are Red Sox pitchers, new Red Sox pitchers. That caught my attention. And I also, as you were describing this, it's interesting when I generated that list of the top 10 starting pitchers, what people said to me about Tarek Skubal really stuck with me as I was formulating those rankings. They said, yeah, the changeup's really good, but he beats hitters in the zone with his fastball, right? And they said his fastball is such that it's that good. And the reason why, and you and I have talked about Garrett Crochet, who, by the way, pitching on Wednesday in our exhibition broadcast, he faces the Yankees. What I got back from different evaluators was Garrett Crochet is awesome. And there are times when he will challenge you in the zone and you can get him in the zone. Like he will give up, give up home runs. So those 2 things jumped out at me. Tarek Skubal can beat hitters in the zone, and sometimes Garrett Crochet gets beat in the zone. What do you think?
It's a well-made point. I mean, last year, Tarek Skubal was literally in the 100th percentile of inducing in-zone whiff. And I suppose this shouldn't be much of a surprise. It's just hard to back much of this up with data because we have very little of it right now. But naturally, I think the pitchers that can use the white of the home plate more effectively than the black are going to wind up winning the day more consistently because, as you know, Buster, from covering the sport for so long, command is going to vacillate from start to start, even the guys with the best command in baseball. But if you can throw 97, and if you're going to consistently get whiff in the zone on your fastball, there is not going to be a greater skill in all of baseball. So perhaps we see Tarek Skubal three-peat, which is something that no American League Cy Young guy has done since Pedro Martinez. I mean, not even since Pedro Martinez. We're talking about a rarity in baseball history, of course, to be able to go back to back to back. He's obviously in line to do it, and I'll be surprised if the ABS challenge system rewards him accordingly.
Another pitcher jumps out at me that I could see benefiting along the lines of what you're talking about is Jacob deGrom.
Yeah.
Like his precision and his ability to nick the edges of the strike zone is just extraordinary. So we'll see how that plays out. What deGrom's teammate, MacKenzie Gore, what do you expect out of him with the Rangers this year?
I think he's going to have the best season of his career, Buster. I'm betting on a MacKenzie Gore breakout in his first season with the Rangers. And I wrote down 2 reasons why I think he's going to be masterful this year. The first of which is a much improved defense. I mean, if he doesn't make a single improvement, he's going from the team that had the 31st ranked defense the 29th ranked defense by defensive efficiency to literally the best defense in the sport last year. No team in baseball converted more balls in play into outs than the Texas Rangers did. And so that in and of itself, just environmentally, is going to improve him massively. But I also think that environmentally, he's going to get into that Rangers pitching lab and improve his optimization. He's going to spin the ball more, Buster, a lot more. So you obviously can't just measure pitch quality by results, but last year his were super loud. So what I looked at was 2 different buckets. I did his spin bucket and his no spin bucket. So if you look at his curveball, his slider, and his cutter, last year the league hit 208 and slugged 299 against those 3 pitches. Those are excellent numbers. Against his four-seamer and his changeup, the league hit 290. It slugged 488. Those are uglier numbers. The bizarre part about this is that he used those 2 pitches 60% of the time. And Buster, that runs contrary to what the Rangers do. The Rangers last year ranked 29th in the sport in fastball usage. They're going to do the thing where they make you throw your best pitches more frequently. And for those two reasons, perhaps, and none other, I think MacKenzie Gore, if you give me 30 MacKenzie Gore starts, it's 200 strikeouts and it's a 4-win season for someone whom I believe is going to be a big reason why they finish as high as second in the American League West.
I was going to ask you, where do you have the Rangers in the division? You said second, because I think, and I wrote up the Mariners preview, which is coming up here. You have them for 94 wins. I've got the Mariners for 95 wins. I think we could be on the cusp of I don't want to say a decade-long domination of the American League West by the Mariners, but a lot like the Astros, I think this is going to be their division to lead. But where do you have the Rangers?
The Rangers I have just outside the playoffs, but I have them ahead of the Houston Astros, which I think is a non-standard opinion. I have them in the range of the Red Sox and in the range of the Royals, in part because it's hard for me to imagine a scenario in which Texas hits worse than it did last year. I think that team's going to hit better just by natural positive regression. And if you give me 120 Corey Seager games again, we know he's going to be awesome. I think Brandon Nimmo does improve that lineup, although that weakens their defense. And like I mentioned, I'm a big believer in this pitching lab. We saw Jacob deGrom healthy last season. We saw a Jack Leiter breakthrough last season. We saw a Patrick Corbin renaissance last season. We saw Tyler Mahle and Nathan Eovaldi pitch to a 1.9 and 38 starts. They were the only staff in the entire sport with a sub 3.5 ERA. The only one. Those guys really know what they're doing from a pitching standpoint. I think MacKenzie Gore is a legit too, and for that reason, they're going to be playing meaningful games the last week or two of the season with a legitimate shot at the wild card.
So here's my pushback on this, and I'm curious, maybe you and I next week can generate a list of the teams. We'll pick out the top 5 teams when it comes to injury risk, okay? We're talking with Walt Weiss before the Braves exhibition against the Tigers on Monday, and he mentioned, we've got guys with injury history stacked up, right? Strider, Sale, and he didn't mention names. I will. Strider, Sale, Riley, Acuna, really, so many guys on that roster. I actually think the Braves are going to be pretty good. But if I were to drop a list, I think I would have the Braves as potentially the highest injury risk, like where that being such a wild X factor for them. Rangers might be first or second on that list with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi and Corey Seager, Josh Young, etc. You got a lot of guys with injury history. That is one of the biggest reasons why I don't think I'm going to pick the Rangers to make the playoffs or even contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's a well-made point. The line I like to use is your lineup sets your floor, your pitching sets your ceiling. The reason I believe the Braves are going to make the playoffs is because I have good reason to believe they're going to blow past 750 runs. I mean, they're going to score a lot of runs. They have a number of high-volume hitters that are going to be average or better. The Rangers are a Corey Seager injury away, especially a prolonged one, from having almost no chance to be a league average lineup. So your point's a well-made one. It obviously comes down to where you're suffering those injuries. I think some teams can absorb the pitching injuries more than they can absorb the lineup injuries, and I think the Braves would be a pretty good example of that.
So when I wrote the top 10s, one of the lines I had in there among the DHs was that you were really pushing for one hitter in particular that you thought I should have higher on my list. I wound up having him at the bottom of the top 10, I think, and he was not in the top 6 or 7 the way you had him. Who was that guy?
That's Ivan Herrera of the St. Louis Cardinals, Buster, who I think will be a household name next year this time. I wrote down 3 reasons why he is inarguably, at least in my opinion, of course, a top 10 designated hitter. The first of which is he absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. Last year, it was a 330, 455, 660 slash against left-handed pitching. I looked at every single hitter in baseball with at least 100 plate appearances with a platoon advantage. That ranked third. That OPS ranked third behind Aaron Judge against lefties and Nick Kurtz against righties and right ahead of Shohei Ohtani against righties. So he absolutely bangs left-handed pitching. But he's not just a lefty masher, Buster. There were last year 233 hitters that faced both sides of the platoon at least 100 times. Of those 233, Herrera was one of only 13 with a DRC plus of 130 or higher against both. So we have a swing shape that he can use against both sides of the platoon effectively. And the last thing I wrote down is that he's not one of these air pull merchants that we see in baseball today who has to catch the ball out front to hit for any power. Obviously, that's optimal, but of course, pitchers know that too. I looked at every swing he had last year to his non-pull side. He slugged .571 on those. That ranks in the 85th percentile. And his average fly ball on those swings traveled 332 feet. that came in the 97th percentile. Oh, by the way, did I mention he's catching again? Buster, he was in the crouch on Sunday. I think the Cardinals are going to use him once or twice a week behind the plate. That's someone with a few years of control and someone who I think they might build his value up to a point where they could potentially get a king's ransom for him via trade if they decide not to extend him long term.
All right, here's why I think you're wrong, okay? I think he's so isolated in that lineup that he's going to see bad match for him, the worst matchups day after day after day. Because I could imagine opposing managers looking at the Cardinals lineup saying, we are not going to let that guy beat us. So you're citing a lot of numbers against left-handed pitchers and how he crushes them. I kind of think if you're a manager coming in facing what is generally speaking, I mean, it's a rebuilding team and it's a thin lineup, you're not going to let that guy beat you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well-made point, Buster. What you'll likely see this year is a higher on base, probably a lower slug as a result of a less attractive pitch profile that you're forecasting. I think you're probably right about it.
All right. Who is your favorite in the WBC before you go?
I picked the United States to win. I picked the United States to beat the Dominican. Look, if you look at the sports book, which are obviously catered to a U.S. audience, they're about a coin flip favorite to win it. And I think that's about right. They have the best roster top to bottom. I have the Dominican finishing as the runner-up because I think that lineup is ridiculous. I also obviously favor Japan a good bit because they consistently play at a high level in this tournament. But there's something about this U.S. team, like the aggregation of talent that the United States has this year, especially from a pitching perspective relative to what it's had in the past, I think does make a pretty considerable difference. But ultimately, as we've seen with these kind of tournaments, because there's such limited usage with your pitching and it's so early in the season, it's going to be a tournament driven by hitting. And I think the United States and the Dominican have the two best lineups in this tournament. Thus, I have them meeting in the championship, and I'm going to pick the United States because, well, I was born here, I live here, and I love this great land. So give me the United States, given the fact that they have the best roster top to bottom and the kind of lineup that I do expect to win the war of attrition.
All right, Hembo. Thanks for doing this.
Later, friends.
Seattle Mariners.
Last year represented a breakthrough for the Seattle Mariners, who finally took down the Astros in the American League West, beat the Tigers in the American League Division Series, and played to a Game 7 in the American League Championship Series against Toronto before losing. And Seattle has had a busy offseason, retooling and refining.
Newcomers.
First baseman Josh Naylor signed a 5-year, $92.5 million extension with the Mariners. Lefty reliever Jose Ferrer was acquired in a trade for highly touted catching prospect Harry Ford. The M's signed Rob Refsnyder, who wrecks left-handed pitching. And just before spring training, Seattle traded for infielder Landon Donovan, who could hit leadoff against right-handed pitching.
Reality injection.
The Astros dominated the American League West for a decade, and the Mariners could take that baton for a lot of the next decade, with a roster loaded with star power. Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Ryan Wu, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Bryce Miller, Kate Anderson, and top prospect Cole Emerson is expected to make his debut sometime early this season.
Win projections.
Pacoda has Seattle at 94.4. Paul Hemikidis says 93 wins. I've got the Mariners winning 95 games and subsequently representing the American League in the World Series.
Alrighty, Buster, Bleacher Tweets for a Wednesday. Let's go to Jason and Grant, New Jersey. They are reading Joe Posnanski's Baseball 100, which was published in March 2023. His son Grant is a Yankee fan, obviously an Aaron Judge fan. He wants to know, obviously at the time this book was written, Aaron Judge, not a top 100 player. Now in 2026, do you think he can crack that top 100 list?
No
without
question.
Pointing on it?
There's no question about it. I mean, what he did in the last 2 years, he was the best right-handed hitter that we've ever seen. It was amazing yesterday when we had the exhibition game. Kerry Carpenter of the Detroit Tigers is the same personal hitting coach as Aaron Judge. And so you can see elements of Judge's swing in Kerry Carpenter. And, Kerry talked to us during the game from his position about what Judge is doing. Oh, 100% he's a top 100 player now.
There you have it. Thanks for writing in, Jason and Grant. Thanks for writing in, everyone. BleacherTweets@gmail.com. That's the best place to reach out. And I have to mea culpa here for the Bleacher Tweeters, because you will hear this. I accidentally chopped off the audio for like the last 30 seconds of the last two shows. That is my bad. And now you will hear this. So, apologies. And thanks for letting me know, because I would not have known. I appreciate it.
No problem. And my thanks to you, Taylor, and to Karl Ravech, to Eduardo Perez, to Paul Embikides, to Gunnar Henderson. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. And remember, hate and inequality based on skin color is something we need to work against every single day.